Happy New Year, everybody. Just like I did the last few years, I want to start off this year by taking a look back at some interesting movies that I've watched last year, in 2015. And they don't necessarily have to be made in 2015, it's really just a list of movies I've watched in 2015. I've picked 25 different titles that, I thought were interesting to share with you guys. So you should really also just see this video as a list of recommendations. I mean, hey, it's always good to start off the year with some interesting movies, right? For the footage, I've just edited from the trailers for every movie, because otherwise it was gonna take me forever to edit the whole video. So just so you know, it's edited a little differently than I normally do. But hey, let's just dive right in. Die Sept Filles, or 17 Girls, a French movie about a bunch of teenage girls that decide to all get pregnant together, based on a true story that happened in the US. Of course. It's hard for me to say why exactly I like this one, but I did. The acting it's pretty well done, you have believable performances, and the girls actually seem like teenagers for a change, especially in their behavior. It's not per se a feel good or feel bad type of movie, but it is an interesting look into the mindset of certain teenagers. So yeah, it's good stuff. Boom! Next. Ask Me Anything. I'm starting off with such girly teen movies, it seems. But this one was pretty interesting and much darker than you might expect. It follows a girl who, after high school, takes a year off to work on her anonymous blog where she talks about her sexual experiences. It starts out all quirky and cute, but like I said, it gets pretty dark for such a teenage coming-of-age tale. The ending got a lot of people mad, but I thought it was pretty clever actually. And it definitely gives the whole movie quite a little twist. Now, something else. From Korea, where they definitely know how to make some pretty extreme thrillers, we have Bedazzled, where a big city woman takes a stress-relieving trip to an isolated backward island where she grew up and where she reconnects with her childhood friend. But life here is very different than in the big city, and she soon discovers all the dark secrets, if you will, that play on this island. I love this movie. It starts out quiet, but it gets pretty messed up along the way. Definitely recommend it. It's woo. Here's one that is actually from 2015, Bone Tomahawk, a western where after a woman gets kidnapped by so-called savages, her husband, together with 3 other men from the small town, go on a journey to rescue her back. The middle part drags a little perhaps, but the performances and the interaction between the 4 main characters definitely says that. It's very well done. Definitely a show stealer, for me at least. Also, this movie has hints of horror that occasionally get pretty damn graphic. Like I said, perhaps a little too long or maybe a little slow, but well, still definitely worth checking out. Boom! The only movie on this list that's made before the year 2000. Yeah, don't know how that happened. Ancient English folk horror, if you will. The small subgenre during the late 60s, early 70s in the UK. Set in the 1700s, it tells a story about a small village where some of the younger kids get into some pretty evil stuff. It starts out slow. Well, it's a slow movie in general, but I just love the whole atmosphere and the whole imagery, like with the cinematography and locations, it looks really beautiful. Plus, I personally just loved this whole theme about the occult and whatnot, it's good stuff. Electric Children, a coming-of-age story where we follow a 15-year-old girl who escapes from her Mormon community to look for the man she heard on a cassette tape, believing it is him who miraculously impregnated her. Yeah, just go with it. First thing you need to do with this movie is not overthink it too much. You really need to suspend your disbelief in order to enjoy it, otherwise it's just not gonna make a lot of sense. That's what I did, and well, I ended up loving it. Mostly for the whole somewhat nostalgic, dreamlike atmosphere. Plus, the main girl, she gave a fantastic performance, in my opinion. Give it a chance. The Final Girls, the super meta, self-aware slasher homage released last year, where a bunch of teenagers actually end up in a real slasher movie. If you love slashers, you'll most likely enjoy this one. The one big thing that is usually brought up, when talking about this movie is the PG-13 rating. And, well, I agree. I probably would have enjoyed it more as an R-rated movie, with some gory killings and perhaps some nudity. Because, well, that is often what makes a slasher movie interesting. It's really just part of the genre. And, well, with this movie, perhaps a little less focus on the emotional part of the movie would have been nice. But, well, besides all of that, it's still definitely good fun.
Fish Tank, a British coming-of-age story about a 15-year-old girl living with her shitty single mom, who eventually starts dating this new guy and, well, he's kinda sexy. And then we just sort of follow her around. I really appreciate this one for its rawness, you know, it's not very pretty, it's all quite pessimistic. But hey, that's honest, right? I mean, life isn't always fun. So, if you like that kind of stuff, you know, like coming-of-age tales about troubled teenagers, you'll most likely enjoy this one as well. So, yeah, recommend it. Hits, and well, this one's a little hard to recommend. I mean, it's quite the acquired taste, I'd say. It's written and directed by David Cross, who I love mostly because of his role as Tobias in Arrested Development. The movie follows different stories about different people in a small town that all somewhat come together when one man's political rant goes viral on YouTube. It's a bit of a parody, you know, like a satire on certain aspects of modern Western, well, mostly US society. And, well, I thought it was quite funny, actually, in a very subtle way. Give it a chance, I mean, you might like it as well. Housebound, a horror comedy from New Zealand about a troubled girl that's sentenced to house arrest at her mother's house, where she soon realizes there is something perhaps wrong with the house. It took me a little while to get into, mostly because the main girl, she is freaking annoying during the first half of the movie. Really, like, oh, I could barely stand it. But I'm glad I still gave it a chance, because in the end it's a well, surprisingly unpredictable, fun movie with still quite some memorable characters. Yeah, cool stuff. The only documentary on this list, The Imposter. It tells a story about a French man who impersonated a Texas teenager who had been missing for 3 years and then reconnects with his family. So that is the Texas teenager's family. It's the weirdest story. It has these dramatic reenactments which are actually really well done. It gives the whole documentary a very cinematic look and feel, which, well, in combination with the fascinating story, makes for quite an interesting movie. It's, oh man, check it out. Oh yes, there it is, the much hyped It Follows. It's quite a love it or hate it type of deal, and well, I actually really like this one. The story is original enough, and I just love the whole nostalgic, somewhat surreal atmosphere. You know, with the lack of adult characters and the whole uncertainty about when the movie is set, you know, like what year or what era. And, of course, the amazing soundtrack, it's quite a show stealer. It might not be super scary, but I've seen it 3 times now and I just really like it. It just really sucks that it is so hyped because, you know, that is gonna cause some disappointment in some situations. Still, see for yourself if you haven't already. Love Object, a fun, dark comedy about a man who develops an unhealthy, obsessive relation with a sex doll and then later starts to date an actual girl and then, It's pretty twisted and you could call it a horror movie, but it's really just a lot of fun. Again, in a very twisted way. Not sure what else I can say about this one. I mean, it's nothing too special. It's just, like I said, a lot of fun. Still, I definitely recommend this one. Check it out. Malena, an Italian drama comedy, I guess, set in 1940 Sicily about a group of boys, but well, one boy in particular, who becomes somewhat obsessed by the beautiful Malena, a lady from his small town. It has beautiful cinematography and a great soundtrack by Ennio Morricone. The movie, it's both funny and sad. Well, quite tragic even at points. And well, all in all, it's really just a great, touching piece of cinema. You know? If you decide to want to check out this movie, be sure to watch the original Italian cut, since the US cut kind of butchers the movie. And well, that's no good. Philomena, the true story about how a journalist tries to help a woman find back her son she was forced to give up for adoption 50 years earlier. The poster really makes it look like such a lame movie, but it's actually really good. It's funny and playful, but serious and quite touching at the same time. Great performances by the 2 leads and their interaction together is very believable and just, you know, fun to watch, fun to look at. Yeah, don't let the poster fool you guys, just check it out. Sideways, a comedy drama by the director who would go on to direct Nebraska, a movie I've covered during my favorite movies series. Sideways is about 2 old friends that go out for a week of wine tasting and then all kinds of stuff happens. It's such a likable movie, so much fun to watch, and the balance between comedy and drama is just spot on. It's so well done. very well written and performed. This is definitely one you should check out if you haven't already. Oh, Silenced, a South Korean drama based on actual events concerning a school for the deaf where certain students were sexually abused. It starts out a little slow, but you soon get invested in the story, and then it's quite a heavy, intense ride. It's definitely quite sad, especially since it's a true story, but it's good to know that this movie actually managed to get the case reopened and have some of the offending teachers get a proper sentence. But yeah, heavy stuff. Check it out. Starry Eyes, another 2014 horror movie that was quite hyped, although perhaps not as much as The Babadook or It Follows, but one that I was also quite pleasantly surprised by. It's about a young, aspiring actress that just can't seem to land a role, but who does eventually get some auditions going on, but at this perhaps a little shady production company. And the movie works surprisingly well. It's rather unpredictable, the production value for such a low budget movie is pretty good, and overall it was just quite entertaining. Yeah, it's nice to see some fresh, new horror movies. I liked it. The Tribe, another one that's kinda hard to recommend. Why, you ask me? Well, mostly because it's an Ukrainian movie entirely in sign language with no subtitles or dialogue at all. That is also, of course, how it grabbed my attention, but I wouldn't say it's a gimmick. The story takes place at a school for the deaf where the new kid soon finds out the somewhat criminal mechanics that take place. It might take you a little while to get into, it's very slow with a lot of long continuous takes, but in the end it's pretty good. It's very raw, it's gritty, it's definitely something fresh. If that sounds like something you'd appreciate, you know what to do. Give it a chance. Turbo Kid, often compared to Mad Max because it came out around the same time as Fury Road, and it's also set in a bit of a post-apocalyptic, steampunkish world. But if anything, it's mostly just an homage to the sort of post-apocalyptic or the action-adventure movies of the 80s. And most of all, it's really just a lot of fun. It's gory with a lot of practical special effects. It has great production value for its low budget. It's never boring. And I just love the girl character named Apple. She's amazing. Check it out. This movie is really just all about having fun. Perhaps I'm a little late with discovering this one, but yes, Wet Hot American Summer. Basically just a comedy or homage, or well, perhaps more a parody on the sex comedies of the 80s. We basically just follow a group of teenagers during the last day at summer camp. The humor is quite absurd, and you know that is an acquired taste, but I loved it. Also, this movie is quite notable for its ensemble cast with many young actors that would go on and make it pretty big. Also, last year Netflix produced a prequel series with pretty much the entire cast returning, which I also thought was really fun. Enjoyed both of them quite a bit, so check it out. What We Do in the Shadows, a mockumentary from New Zealand where we follow a group of vampires that are living together. That alone is already an hilarious setup. Co-written, directed by and starring Jermaine Clement of Flight of the Conchords fame, we really just follow around these vampires, you know, all with their different personalities, and that way get a glimpse into their life as a vampire. That's it. That's how I'm gonna sell this movie. But trust me, it's hilarious. Really, you won't be disappointed. When Marnie Was There, the only anime on this list. Produced by Studio Ghibli, it tells the story of a young girl who spends the summer at her foster parents' relatives in a small seaside town to get some rest, but where she soon gets almost obsessively intrigued by an old mansion and the girl who lives there. It's Marnie. The whole story and the way it plays out is amazing. It's such a sweet and touching movie, and also beautifully animated. I'm never too big on anime, but I love this one. Also, I got my girlfriend the recently released complete works of Miyazaki on Blu-ray, so hey, that's another way to check out some great anime movies. Why Don't You Play in Hell by Japanese director Sion Sono, where we follow a group of aspiring filmmakers and two rivaling Yakuza gangs who all come together in the end. It definitely took me a little while to get into, or you know, for it to get interesting, and it might be a little too long, a little slow, but still, in the end, it's just ridiculously fun. Oh man, it's hard to describe this one. The trailer also doesn't even really do the movie justice, since it mostly just focuses on one part of the movie, and you really need the whole of the story for it to work. But, oh man, this movie. If it looks interesting to you, give it a shot. It's, oh boy. And last but definitely not least, XXY, an Argentinian movie about an intersex teenager struggling with his/her condition and the decision he/she eventually has to make when it comes to choosing a gender. It's quite a beautiful and moving story, you know, like movie in general. Very well acted, nicely shot, really like in general just pretty well made. Plus, it's a subject matter you don't see a lot. In the end, it's a tragic, moving, you know, somewhat coming-of-age story that's, you know, it's well worth checking out. Give it a shot.
And, well, that's it. 25 movies that I myself enjoyed quite a bit, and, you know, well, hopefully there were at least a few that seemed interesting to you guys. I actually started working on this video some 3 weeks ago already. That's when I made the list. That's when I picked the 25 movies. And so there's definitely a few movies that I have seen since, most notably as the new Star Wars, The Hateful Eight, and The Revenant. And The Hateful Eight, I loved it. Awesome. The Revenant, I thought it was okay. Perhaps a little overhyped. Can you say that? Is that allowed? And Star Wars, well, I'm not a fan of the franchise, and I slept through half of the movie because I saw it at 11 p.m., you know, like 11 in the night. The same day that I had a 10-hour flight, so I just fell asleep. But from what I've seen, it was entertaining. But yeah, that's all for this video. Well, I hope you guys have a fantastic 2016 and all of that. And I'll see you guys soon.